Another week gone and one step closer to the fantasy rugby season wrapping up for another year. This week, we're looking at round 15 of Super Rugby and the Champions Cup final. And then we look ahead to round 16 of Super Rugby, the quarterfinals of URC and round 18 of Premiership Rugby. As we're entering the knockout stages of the major competitions now, this week we'll also take a look at how the respective games are handling the playoffs. Okay, now taking a look at how my teams got on last week, kicking off with the Champions Cup final. So after Bordeaux's victory, the season is over. And I've got to say, this was one of the worst ever fantasy league experiences I've had. It's been a disaster of my Champions Cup team from start to finish, and the final really wasn't much better. Let's take a look at how my team got on. So for the final, I ended up with 149.5 points. I had some good performances from Louis Bielbieri, Damien Penaud, Tommy Freeman. So the back three did well for me. I was tempted by Penaud as captain, but I went for LBB, probably playing it safe, and I probably didn't need to play it safe. The final's all about gambles. But there you go. Deporter with 12.5 points was solid enough in midfield. But then I had some really disappointing performances from the likes of Alex Mitchell, Josh Kemeny, Henry Pollock. I really wanted to bring in Alex Coles, but I already had Timo Maivanua in my team. So I just stuck with him, which was an epic fail. Cole got 2 tries, an outstanding performance, and he would have shot my score right up. But it didn't happen. C'est la vie. That's the game sometimes. So 149.5 points. It's just summing up a really, really poor Champions Cup season for me. Let's take a look at the guys who did well in the league. First up, Rugby Ramblings, the winner of the FRG Women's Six Nations League, also won the Champions Cup League. Amazing work from him. Frowdy in second place, Ewan Huzami in third. We got Wobblies in fourth, Asti Bolt in fifth, and then right behind we had our Duncan 8, the Mighty Quim, Boy Named Stu, Josh, and D4 Tress making up the top 10. So that's the Champions Cup. Good riddance. Hopefully I'll be better next year. Now taking a look at Super Rugby. So starting with the official game. Again, a good week for me, although I had a few players who were a bit disappointing. I had good Chiefs coverage for their massive win against Moana. Damien McKenzie, he was my captain. I actually played the co-captain's chip, so I had Sevu Reece and Damien McKenzie, who racked up a big score for me. Quinn Tupaia, Daniel Rona, both did pretty well, 39 points and 59 points respectively, although I was regretting not having Billy Proctor. Leroy Carter, 102 points, outstanding, one of several Chiefs players who hit 80 points plus. And then on the other hand, I had a few very disappointing scores. So Macca Springer, I really hoped for a big performance for him, but 10 points just wasn't cutting it. I would have liked Sevu Reece to do a bit better as well as my captain. Miracle Failangi, only 9 points, pretty poor. Cullen Grace, only 7 points out of position. And Angus Bell, 11 points, way below his usual average. But 650 points, it keeps me right up there in the league standings and right up there in the overall standings. So taking a look at the FRG League, Colin Talks Rugby, Colin Flaherty is still leading the way, and I don't think anyone's going to catch him. In second place, we've got Speed Mode, then Laker Luca, Reese's Piece, my team, Aidan Collins Rugby right behind me. That's going to be interesting. Jack Sully, 10, Andrew Ewing, Gordo's Ghouls, and Armac make up the top 10. Over to Super Brew, it was a pretty average week for me, 205 points. Quick look at my team. Sevu Reece captain, 11 points, so making 22 points after the captaincy. Okay, nothing great. Daniel Rona, 21 points, excellent. Damien McKenzie, 42.5 points with a kicking bonus. Tupu Vai, 18 points, and Carlo Tizzano also did pretty well with 14 points. So 200.5 points. It's over 200. You've got to be happy with that, but it could have been much better. Okay, taking a look at the FRG League very, very quickly. So Colin Flaherty is leading the way there as well with 3,184 points. Then we've got the Flying Dutchman right behind him, Yippee Try Yay, H. Burr, Frowdy, Jack Sully 10, American Blues, Jake Jagger 96, Sam, and a boy named Stu making up the top 10. Finally to FRD, in my big matchup against FRTV, it didn't go my way. I won in this round, but it wasn't enough to make up the final score on aggregate. Again, like I did in leg 1, I got hit with a late dropout. This time Andrew Kellaway was a late hook for the Waratahs. So for the second week in a row, I've gone out with 14 players instead of 15 players. But fair play, Andrew beat me fair and square. I can't argue with that. It's into the Sacco final for me against my old friend Corbus Hatting. So it's a big one. And he's got a very strong team by the looks of it. You've got Caleb Clark in there, Andy Muirhead, Finian Ganofo from the Hurricanes. You've got Quintu Paya, Balin Sullivan, Valesio, Satutu, Papalihi. Some strong players here with good fixtures. That could be tough. I'm hoping that my first round pick, Mark Talea, finally does something to justify that first round pick. Okay, on to this week, and we have round 16 of Super Rugby, round 18 of Premiership Rugby, and the quarterfinals of URC. Kicking off with Super Rugby and a quick work on how the games are managing the knockout stages. So the official game looks like it will only run to the end of the regular season, and that's where scoring will finish. So this looks like it will be your last possible week to gain fantasy points. So if you have any of the booster chips left, this is the week to get playing them. Fantasy Rugby Draft also wraps up this week with the Championship and Sacco finals. Super Brew will continue all the way to the final, although there are some changes in terms of the transfers you're allowed and your team allowances. So from the semi-finals next week, you can make 8 free transfers and you can have 8 players from the same team. And for the final, again, you can have 8 transfers and you can take an unlimited amount of players from any one team. Looking ahead to round 16 this week, the teams I'm targeting are the Blues at home to an out of form and injury hit Waratahs side, the Reds at home to the Drua, Chiefs taking on a Highlanders team in free fall, and Hurricanes taking on Moana at home after their 85-7 hammering to the Chiefs last week. Finally, a reminder as well that the Force are on a bye this week. In terms of the 5 players I'm looking at this week, kicking off with Cam Roygaard. 3 tries in his last 2 games. He seems to be getting better and better, and he's also getting some very long runs on the pitch, having played 3 80-minute matches this season and a further 6 70-minute plus matches. With his ability, he's going to be at the root of much of the Canes' attacks against Moana this week. Then we've got D-Mac. He's an obvious choice, but he's got a good fixture this week. He's in form, and he will be building up the fantasy points as usual. Ardi Tavere, another obvious choice. Even if Moana will be on the end of another tough loss, he will still be making the tackles and carries and building up the points. Then we've got Ruben Love, a creative threat from 15. He'll be gaining the meters, line breaks and defenders beaten from the backfield, but he also has potential for kicking points, even with Brett Cameron starting. Last week when Cameron came on, Love still retained the kicking duties. And then finally, Mark Talea, he's back after his suspension with a big point to prove after a very lackluster season by his standards. He's got a good fixture and we all know what he's capable of. This could be the week to get back on the Talea train. Over to the Premiership, and much like Super Rugby, it's the last week of action before the playoffs kick in. For the respective fantasy games, so for Dream 15 Rugby, it continues as normal for the playoffs with no real notable changes, while Super Brew, for the next round, much like Super Rugby, you can have 8 free transfers and have 8 players from the same team for the semis, and then for the finals, you have 8 transfers and then an unlimited selection of players from any one team. Round 18 of Premiership Rugby sees 5 matches being played simultaneously on Saturday afternoon, with the playoff race wide open, with just 5 points separating Leicester Tigers in second from Saracens in sixth. And this is guiding where I'm going to be investing my fantasy team this week. I'm only going to be focusing on teams with a playoff place at stake. This week, I'm focusing primarily on Leicester, playing at home to Newcastle and needing just a single point to secure their playoff position. They're going to be putting a strong team out against Newcastle, and with a Newcastle team with nothing to play for, this really should be one-way traffic. Then we've got Gloucester, who are playing a Northampton Saints team who are out of the running for the Premiership and will likely rest a large portion of their team after their Champions Cup final exertions last week. Gloucester sit 5th heading into the final day, so only a convincing win and results going their way elsewhere will do. Saracens are another team to target this week. Like Gloucester, they need to win convincingly and hope the other results fall their way. They're playing Bath, who have already secured a home semi, and so they will be likely resting plenty of players looking ahead to next week. Sale Sharks are a team who are very much in the running for the playoffs. They need just 2 points to ensure qualification, and they face an Exeter side with absolutely nothing to play for. It should be a convincing win for Sale. And then finally, Bristol host Harlequins in a match that always brings the tries. For Bristol, it's simple. A win will be sufficient to get through to the playoffs against Harlequins side with nothing but pride left to play for. There's going to be points. So my big five this week, kicking off with Adam Radwan. He's facing his old side in a massive game to secure playoff position. He's on form and he will definitely be in the mix for points. Then we've got Ollie Hassel-Collins. He's also in form and just as likely to make an impact. If you can afford both Leicester wingers, this is the week to do it. Then Tom Willis, likely up against an inexperienced Bath defence. The game is perfectly set for Willis to wreak his usual brand of carrying havoc on Saturday. Andre Pollard, with the points likely to be ticking over on Saturday, Pollard will get plenty of kicking opportunities. Now's definitely the time to bring him in. And then finally, Gabby Ibitoy in a game that's likely to be wide open, but it's a must-win for Bristol. This is tailor-made for Ibitoy to make an impact. If you don't have him already, now's the time to lock him into your 15. Finally, onto URC, and the first stage of the knockout stages commences this week with the quarterfinals. On Super Brew, the entire knockout stage, the free transfer allowance goes up to 8 free transfers per round, and the team limit is 6 per team for the quarters, 8 per team for the semis, and unlimited for the final. Looking at the quarterfinal matches, there are 2 games standing out to me with big mismatch potential. Firstly, Leinster at home to the Scarlets, the favourites against the rank outsiders. Leinster will probably go heavy with their first team and will give the Scarlets a very tough run at the Aviva. I also like the look of the Bulls at home to Edinburgh. Loftus Versfeld is a tough place to visit at the best of times, and with a semi-final place on the line, I don't see anything but a convincing Bulls win. In terms of my 5 players to watch here, kicking off with Dan Sheehan of Leicester. Surely he'll be given a starting pot on Saturday, and if he's selected, the tries will come. An absolute no-brainer. I've gone for Sebastian de Klerk. He's in great form with 3 tries in his last 2 games. He's in hot form and he should give the Edinburgh defence a torrid time. Cameron Hanneken, a class act, and he's going to be a big carrying option for the Bulls this week. When Hanneken's on song, he's simply unstoppable. Geordie Barrett, another player in top form. He'll want to see out his Leinster experience with the URC title, and he's going to be absolutely key for them within the knockout stages. And then finishing up with Sam Prendergast. He's likely on kicking duty on Saturday and should get plenty of opportunity to slot some kicks. A really safe bet in the fly half position. So that's it for this week. Check out fantasyrugbygeek.com for my full round 16 picks for Super Rugby. Make sure you check it out on Friday afternoon for my full Prem Rugby and URC picks. That's it. As always, make sure you get your teams in on time and good luck.